I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. This is the SIGVE Speaker Series, the December edition. I hope everyone's having an uneventful December and getting ready for the holidays. We have a very special guest this evening, and to really do justice to all of the titles and the work she's done, I don't think I could do it justice, so I'm going to let Bev really kind of take over and give the majority of her background. But suffices to say, as you can tell, she's a certified virtual worlds architect and designer, which in and of itself sounds pretty fascinating. And we'll be hopefully be getting into some of that experience. And she's had a pretty vast experience in virtual worlds. I think probably really kind of all over the map on virtual worlds. So it's, I think, a great honor to have her here. I think it's going to be a really great night. I just want to remind everybody I will be doing my best to take back channeling questions. So if you want to put them into chat, feel free to do that. And I'll try and put them out there at the end or whenever we get a break. And also we are filming tonight, and this will go on our SIGVE channel. So just keep those things in mind. And with that, I want to thank Beverly for being here tonight. And Beverly, can you tell us a little bit about your background and then tell us all the great, amazing stuff you're doing with virtual environments? Welcome.
Thank you, Spiff. I appreciate that very much. And greetings, everybody. And I want to thank Spiff and Gridjumper for letting me be part of this wonderful 2012-2013 SIGVE Speakers Series. This is fabulous. And I do want to upfront apologize for my hyper-gesturing avatar. It has a bug from its original model that cannot be eradicated, so she gets a little wild. Today, I'm going to talk about problem-based learning, wicked problems in virtual environments. And before I talk about my background, I want to explain a little bit about the talk. In this talk, I would like to look at the changing learning environment as it transitions from traditional learning events to continuous learning journeys and problem-based learning scenarios, and how all of this is necessitated by changes in our 21st century environment. I'll be exploring how we might be able to meet the challenges of teaching critical thinking to solve the dynamic, complex problems of the 21st century, how instructors will need to become even more facilitative, not only in helping students in the learning process itself, but in facilitating group dynamics too, those wicked problems that can impact overall learning as well. This is my work experience background. Currently, I'm working on the U.S. military's EDGE project, and I have an island in Moses that I'm starting to establish a build that deals with wicked problems and complex scenarios. Previously, I worked at the National Defense University at Smithsonian Institution as well. My company is Human Mosaic Systems, and my work focuses on the psychology of the avatar in virtual worlds, wicked problems, the complexity of immersive learning spaces, as well as the impact of aesthetics in 3D immersive environments and on complex systems. My degrees are Master Science in Counseling Psychology and Human Systems and an MFA in Studio Art, certifications as seen before, dealing with virtual world design and self-organizing facilitation, and published work in the area of leadership in complex systems. I have a unique understanding of the complex dynamics at work today and how multi-user virtual environments can help us navigate the problems we face. And I just got a ping from Keelan. She's having a hard time hearing, and if somebody could help her with that, that'd be great. This slide, you can see earlier somebody was asking about my book was out, and here it is. It's the Leadership in Chaotic Organizations. It just came out in October 2012, and some of my other publications are there as well. And let's go on to the next one. While I work in various virtual platforms, including, as I said before, the Army's Moses Project, I'm also a member of the Professional Educators Guild in World of Warcraft called Cognitive Dissonance, which has over 300 active members who are utilizing WoW and multi-user environments in their various teaching curricula. The way we teach and the way we learn is changing as we've become hyper-connected globally through the internet. And it's demonstrated by these groups forming. Let's look at what we're going to be talking about for this talk. Let's break it down. So we're going to look at what is the problem or project-based learning, what are wicked problems, what's its definitions, how they come about, and implications for learning. What are narrative structures and how they impact the decisions we make? How and why are virtual environments significant, and how they can be used even more effectively with an understanding of wicked problems? And then what are the implications for learning environments? Okay, let's jump on into, oh, there he goes, project or problem-based learning. Problem-based learning results from the process of working towards the understanding or resolution of a problem. The process of problem-based learning is shown in this figure and is contrasted with subject-based learning. One definition of problem-based learning is as follows. Problem-based learning is a very suitable especially for 21st century learning, because it helps participants develop skills and confidence for formulating problems they've never seen before. This is an important skill since few problems found in life follow from material presented in a book chapter or have a single right answer that one can answer at the end of a book. The intellectual activity of building models to solve problems helps the model builders understand, explain, predict, etc. The process of building models together in interpersonal interactions results in learning that's difficult to achieve in any other way. Cooperation is working together to accomplish shared goals, and within cooperative activities, individuals seek outcomes that are beneficial to themselves and beneficial to all other group members. Cooperative learning is the instructional use of small groups so that participants work together to maximize their own and each other's learning. In addition, with problem-based learning, students are presented with complex, realistic problems that have been carefully crafted to address course goals and objectives. Students work individually and in groups under the mentoring of a facilitator. Students learn group skills, problem-solving techniques, investigative techniques, disciplinary conduct, and begin to think like experts in the field. Key realization of learning, and the one SIGVE is famous for, is that there's a sweet spot where challenge and skill are well matched, and he dubbed the flow channel. It's what brings us pleasure and keeps us engaged. When we talk about being completely engaged and truly in flow, we're talking about the flow channel. Moving outside the flow channel to the left, we find the anxiety area. When the demands of a task exceed an individual's skills, he experiences anxiety or stress and is unable to handle the task. To the right of the flow channel is the converse of anxiety, the boredom area, where the task is too easy to challenge the individual's skills. So it turns out this simple plot of skill versus challenge actually tells us quite a bit. It's a little surprise game designers try to keep in mind while developing a game. Make the game too hard and people get frustrated or anxious. And if it's too easy, they'll get bored. But beyond that, the framework captures the evolution of skill and learning in general. As players get better at a game, the game should get harder, but always in a way that keeps them in the flow channel. The same is true about learning and skill building. Problem-based learning provides an opportunity for you to keep the learner progressing in the flow channel by providing the requisite challenges and support mechanisms to reduce boredom and anxiety while creating suitable environments to achieve the goals of the enterprise. These goals are what maintain engagement and lead to that inevitable aha moment when both the individual and the team realize they've succeeded in their mission. Another tool for learning is, of course, role play, which allows us to step into the perspective of another, as well as engage in a greater narrative. It also requires us to collaborate with others to achieve a goal. In a role-playing game, not only do you have to create the environment, but you have to build the systems that make it live, or use an established system. Every player has his or her own goals and objectives, and in the game designers and game masters establish these goals and objectives to get the players talking and give them things to do. Understanding the decision-making process of each individual is just as important, if not more important, than the decisions themselves. All right, let's examine now the inherent complex dynamics of multi-user environments. This chart is from General McChrystal's 2009 Afghanistan Stability Coin Dynamics Security document that demonstrates the nature of wicked problems, those problems that arise from complex human interactions. As you can see, this is an incredible dynamic web of influence loops that can be overwhelming to begin to analyze. These are the same physical world dynamics that are mirrored in 3D immersive virtual environments. As such, in designing these learning environments, one needs to take these dynamics into considerations. What's important to remember here is that understanding the decision-making process of each individual in a multi-user virtual environment means understanding the inherent nature of wicked problems. Okay, let's look at what we mean by wicked problems. Wicked problems always occur in the context of human systems, reflecting the diversity of perspectives, paradigms, and views of reality of the individuals involved, and their unpredictability. All wicked problems are complex systems, but not all complex systems are wicked problems. Again, the difference is the social aspect. People are involved, and thus it's wicked. Now, complex systems, by contrast, some examples include, for instance, ant colonies, nervous systems, cells, modern energy and telecommunication infrastructures. There's not a social component to those. The ultimate succinct intuitive definition of a complex system is that a system starts to have complex behaviors, non-predictability emergence, for instance, the moment it consists of parts interacting in a non-linear fashion. Another is that a complex system is a system for which it's difficult, if not impossible, to reduce the number of parameters or characterizing variables without losing its essential global functional properties. In other words, you can't simplify it. You can't remove any parts to try to get a handle on it. That just makes a situation or problem that's not the one you're dealing with. Now, in contrast, as we said before, wicked problems have social components to them. They're still a complex system, but people are involved, human interaction. Examples of wicked problems include economic, environmental, and political issues, natural hazards, healthcare, pandemic, influenza, drug trafficking, terrorism, nuclear weapons, knowledge management systems, and decision-making systems. A definition of wicked problem, by contrast, is that it describes a problem that's difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, or changing dynamics that are often difficult to recognize. Sometimes part of trying to solve a wicked problem involves the same people who are creating it as well. So as stated before, wicked problems always occur in the context of human systems, reflecting a diversity of perspectives, paradigms, and views of reality, and unpredictability. Now, on the next slide, what's the impact of wicked problems, and why do we even bother? Why do we care about it? Their importance lies in the fact that we perceive our world and interact with others based on that perception. It impacts the decisions we make. Individual and cultural perspectives are in frequent and immediate contact, resulting in either innovation and collaboration through the diversity of ideas and perspectives, or increased conflict or war in response to that same diversity of perspectives on how the world works. We see these same dynamics at play in immersive multi-user environments. It's been noted today that critical thinking skills need to be taught, and project-based learning in groups is one of the very effective means of doing just that. Multi-user virtual environments for project-based learning is great for it. Not only for learning to think critically and problem solving, but also for developing skills needed to navigate wicked problems that will enable collaborative efforts to solve the complex problems of the 21st century. These environments encourage flow, motivating student learning and engagement through the three key factors determined, or identified, I should say, by deterministic psychology: developing competence or skill building, having freedom to choose what interests us, and being able to socialize, work with others, or share. Let's go to the next slide. The main design elements you find in multi-user environments that influence wicked problems are group dynamics, complexity, those unseen dynamics that have a dramatic impact, and the skills to facilitate collaboration. These design elements impact teamwork and problem-based learning. Many project tests in schools or in organizations require a team to bring their individual skills to bear. We need to be able to work well together to solve these problems. We need to be able to navigate these wicked problems. And we need, as a result, communication skills, collaboration skills, and in order to enhance creativity and innovation through embracing diversity of ideas and perspectives. And we need to be able to minimize conflict. So let's move on and let's look at narrative structures. Most of us are used to hearing it in terms of the storyline, but I want to talk about a different aspect. Narratives are a powerful component of wicked problems in that they influence human behavior on the collective as well as the individual levels. Historically, from Homer and Virgil to Chaucer and Shakespeare to modern cinema, and stories have been used to allow us to immerse ourselves into the mind and feelings of others in order to gain a wider individual perspective of how the world works and what consequences may follow certain actions. They help us make sense of the complexity of our world. They are the stories of lessons learned and what ifs. They can also reflect a group's societal or cultural belief system that dictates particular expected code of behavior from its members. On an individual level, personal narratives are our lenses through which we interpret the world. They help us make decisions, and they shape and influence our sense of self and our identity. So how do we develop them? We've developed them through our personal neurochemistry, that's our genetic personality as it were, early childhood experiences, family history and values, groups we've belonged to, cultural values, religious values, etc. And oftentimes these narratives are constructed to confirm what we already believe and expect. These narratives become our view of reality, of how the world works. It becomes our individual perspective. They influence our interpretation of larger cultural narratives, and they can become more rigid when we are afraid, when we find ourselves facing uncertainty. The impact of this on wicked problems is that when one's views of how the world works becomes rigid, there's less collaboration, less innovation, less creativity through the diversity of ideas or perspectives, and thus more conflict. Immersive 3D learning environments are uniquely suited for enabling individuals to step into the narratives and perspectives of others due to transference and presence. These are not passive experiences such as with books, movies, or theater. 3D learning environments designed with the many aspects of wicked problems in mind can result in a learning experience that allows complex emergence to occur and a paradigm shift in understanding not only ourselves but others as well, facilitating creativity and collaboration while minimizing conflict. So let's look at these virtual environments. The world continues to change, and multi-user virtual environments are in the forefront of changing the way we learn and interact. 3D immersive learning environments are uniquely suited for enabling individuals to step into the narratives and perspectives of others. They enable people to learn kinetically, and through presence and transference, they mirror human dynamics found in the physical world, and thus they mirror wicked problems. They impact us psychologically, behaviorally, the human mind and wants physically to extend into its environment, no matter what that environment may be. The mind easily handles immersion and mixed reality states. It only needs good enough to dive right in. As a result, there are implications for the avatar, which is our extension into these environments. Humans are social by nature. When we interact and when we successfully meet challenges, remember that concept of flow. Reinforcing chemicals in the brain are produced, such as oxytocin, that trust and bonding chemical, beta endorphins, dopamine. The neurochemicals encourage us to repeat these experiences. We are also visual spatial, and these environments enable rich 3D visual environments. Presence and transference readily occur in 3D immersive environments, as we said before, and they're why these environments are so incredibly powerful. The three aspects of presence include emergence, a sense of presence of oneself in the environment, awareness, the sense of self with others in the environment, and finally absorption, an absorption in doing a task in the environment. You lose track of time as a result. The information age is giving way to the conversation age, and the power of virtual worlds are helping us work together and achieve our goals, despite our differences in our personality, childhood history, culture, location, or even generation. And like the previous agricultural and industrial revolutions, we're in the midst of another significant global revolution. It's already changing not only our societies and culture, but even the physical structure of our brains. This latest revolution is one impacted by virtual worlds. In today's hyper-connected world, it's important for individuals with different perspectives on how the world works to learn to come together to collaborate on complex problems. bringing their diversity together to increase creativity and innovation, to develop critical thinking skills for the complex problems of the 21st century. Virtual world simulations with an eye toward facilitating human interaction skills to navigate wicked problems are becoming recognized as essential tools to combat these challenging issues. It's important that these environments are designed with a living system of wicked problems in mind to facilitate critical thinking and problem solving. There are three core dynamics at the heart of complex human interactions and systems. The living system is so important in the design of these multi-user environments. These dynamics continue to modify and shape each other as they interact, and they include identity, relationships, and narratives. Similar to architecture in our physical world, for the environment to be effective, the design of the virtual space needs to have these aspects in mind. One, identity. We need to be able to facilitate the individual in the space and understand the influential factors that are involved. We need customizable avatars. Remember, the avatar is an extension of ourself, our sense of self as well. And it needs to feel like ourselves because it's able to change us as well as represent us. Second, narratives and perspectives. We need to understand that narratives reflect more than just a storyline. It reflects and impacts both the group's and the individual's views of how the world works, as well as impacting the decisions they make. And finally, group dynamics and relationships. We need to make sure that we create a facilitative environment for collaborative interaction and learning. It needs to be open. It needs to allow reflection or quiet spaces. It needs to be aesthetically appealing, and it needs to feel safe, which is necessary to expand our perspectives or our views of reality. Our sense of self or identity comes not only from our neurochemistry and childhood experiences, cultural and family values, for instance, but it also comes from interacting with groups to test out who we are not, making those groups the other. These relationships we form, and those similar to ourselves and those not, inform the perspectives and the narrative filters we develop. They help us make sense of the world. And in turn, those narrative filters continue to reinforce or modify our sense of self and our identity. Remember, this is not a static process, but it's a lifelong dynamic one. On this side, we see we see the same triads is found in World of Warcraft. And that's my avatar, my toon up there. We see individual, information, and relationships. With the individual or identity, you choose your identity. Alliance versus Horde, you choose your race, a Worgen, Night Elf, Dwarf, Human, etc., your class, Hunter, Druid, Engineer, etc., and the guilds you belong to. All those are part of your identity. You learn about your race's history, their perspective on the world war, and how the war works. You develop skills, particular to your class, that influence how you play the game and how you perceive your role in the game. How good your skills become will impact your reputation within the guild and the game world at large. Your achievement skills and gear are able to be seen by anyone in the game as well. Solo questing will teach you fundamentals on how to use your skills. Wikis, guides, forums, add-ons, all will help teach you strategy and see the interconnections with the skills of class and profession. But guilds give you a community to help learn faster with support. While an individual can practice on their own in solo questing, the guild can provide faster learning in this supportive team environment. The guild becomes one's cultural perspective, group narrative, and it impacts your identity. The skills one learns in a supportive environment of the guild can translate to greater success in developing relationships in the larger gaming community through increased value and reputation. Let's look at narratives. These are the many perspectives you encounter in the game that impact your identity in the game and the way you play it. Your own personality and view of how the world works, your class, your race, your guild are all part of the narratives. And your relationships, in turn, all of the above, especially your skills and reputation, will impact your social relationships in the game world. Outward manifestations of skill level, particularly like rare gear earned in raids and dungeons, can influence social acceptance and how you engage others. In this slide, you see the same living systems dynamics at work as it begins to reveal the inherent complex dynamics of this particular MMO. And you see these dynamics in all types of virtual platforms where you have unstructured human interactions. Again, the individual toon's identity and some of the factors that influence it. You see the information and narratives of the guild, that provide information, shape our perspectives, and provide support. And you see the social world at large and the collaboration or conflict that can ensue there. An element of complex systems and wicked problems. And as I talked about earlier when we were talking about characteristics and definitions, the choices we choose and the decisions we make, the actions we take, all impact how we engage, interact with one another. This is seen in immersive virtual environments, especially the multi-user ones, as shown previously on the slide from World of Warcraft. Wicked problems are about how we interact together, bringing our individual views of how the world works, our diverse perspectives, and our individual skill sets together to tackle the complex problems facing us. Multi-user virtual environments, or MMOs, help to teach us to collaborate to maximize our creativity and innovation, as well as look at problems from different perspectives. Self-organization enables the complexity of these living systems, and this slide demonstrates some of that. MMOs demonstrate the multiple layers of interactive complex dynamics that mirror wicked problems in the physical world, as demonstrated with this graph from World of Warcraft again, that's reminiscent of some of the complexity of the earlier General McChrystal document on Afghanistan stability. Their design complexity ties into complex dynamics of human motivation, competency or skill building, freedom to choose what you want to do, and socialization. Here you see many of the dynamic, complex interactions at work. And again, it's not a linear process. All these dynamics are at play at the same time, influencing each other simultaneously. You start with your identity. It's influenced by your narrative. That's your race and your class perspectives. It's influenced again by quest, where you receive rewards to improve your gear, develop skills, and the skills, which include class skills as well as profession skills. And the class skills, of course, increase your abilities in arenas and quests and raids and dungeons. They increase your value as a team member. They increase your problem-solving skills, and they increase your leadership skills. And the profession skills, they increase your self-sufficiency, and they increase your capabilities through gear, spells, and abilities. And the skills, in turn, impact the money you make. This increases your abilities through buying gear and increasing capabilities. And all of this impacts the player outside the game as well. Through guides, blogs, your guild reputation. And it also impacts physical world money. You can make money by creating add-ons or writing guides. All of this, in turn, improves your recognition by others. It increases your reputation. And again, in turn, it all influences your social interactions as well, resulting in collaboration or conflict. Those social interactions can be found in group quests that you participate in, community defense, which builds a sense of belonging and affiliation, guilds, again, a sense of belonging to a particular group, that third place like the TV series Cheers, battlegrounds, raids, dungeons, and arena, and finally, the conversations you have in forums, wikis, and the physical world communities. So let's look at the implications of all of this. Let's bring it all back into focus. Wicked problems are all about the conversation. As said before, the information age is giving way to the conversation age. It's all about building relationships, trust, sharing information, flexible collaborations on a global scale, and redefining who we are and how we work together. It's about how our sense of self and our interactions with others shape our perspectives and our attitudes, how we define, quote, the other, and how we define ourselves. It's about the human dynamics of systems, and it's all about self-organization and the subsequent emergence from those interactions. And all of this impacts how we learn and how we solve problems. Because the mind readily expands into these environments, as you can see on the slide, we're finding many applications for them, such as pain management, as demonstrated by Snow Worlds, that immersive 3D space that's been shown to actually dampen pain centers in the brain, reducing the physical pain burn victims feel during physical therapy and bandage changing, and this is independent of medications. Behavior modification, as shown by Club One Island and its weight reduction program. Psychocyber therapy, helping so many in the areas of post-traumatic stress disorder, like with Virtual Iraq, and dealing with phobias, counseling, autism, and Asperger's. and simulations in learning in general, disaster training, military training, communication skills, business leaders, employee training, and of course, general education. As a result, these 3D immersive learning environments, it's important to remember that the complex dynamics seen daily in our physical world are also seen in these immersive virtual environments. As demonstrated, multi-user virtual environments are powerful environments that allow complex human dynamics, wicked problems, to be mirrored. They're also powerful kinetic learning environments that allow individuals to think critically and problem solve, staying engaged due to the inherent flow of the dynamics of the simulation. All of this points to teachers having a greater role as facilitators in this powerful learning environment, facilitating the individual and group learning in the environment as the participants work through trial and error to see what works best to solve the problems posed. One key to success in role-playing, and one of the general flaws in business-oriented role-playing, is when the players feel they have free will and are not arbitrarily bound. The role of the facilitator requires a continual mode of observation of the participants, keeping them progressing in the flow channel by providing the requisite challenges and support mechanisms to reduce boredom and anxiety while creating a suitable environment to achieve the goals of the enterprise, as well as helping those learners who may become stuck in trying to see alternatives to solving a problem and facilitating the group dynamics of this complex environment, making sure the individuals and the group are learning in a safe and productive environment. These goals or quests are what maintain engagement and lead to the inevitable aha moment of discovery, when both the individual and the team realize they have succeeded in their mission. As learners, we like to be challenged. We like to pursue tasks that interest us. We like to socialize and share with others. This motivates and engages us. Immersive virtual environments are powerful teaching tools when skillfully facilitated by a knowledgeable instructor. In conclusion, it's important to note the world's changed. It's globally connected and wicked problems are a real danger. We need innovation, creativity, collaboration, and communication skills, and critical thinking to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Multi-user virtual environments are a powerful way to do just that, enabling learners to be challenged and to think critically, applying their skill sets in new ways to meet the challenges of unforeseen context. They also allow us to examine abstract concepts in ways impossible in our physical world, seeing problems from new perspectives and finding creative solutions in collaborative environments. Their use is spreading and becoming more sophisticated every day as we see an increasingly widespread use by corporations, military, and school systems in the United States and Canada. It's an exciting time to be. It's an exciting time to learn and teach. So I appreciate you all listening very much. We'll take questions, and this next slide is my contact information. Thank you, Spiff.
Wow, that was a lot to take in. And is there a way to get your presentation? Do you have that available for us?
No, I tend to make my living with these things. But you can see a lot of this information on my website. And of course, all of this tends to be also in my latest book that I wrote as well. And I think they have an electronic version as well. Although the last chapter is the one that focuses on wicked problems. But my website, I'll put this in chat. Thanks everybody. I appreciate that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your book? Maybe what was involved in it? What was the
Sure.
impetus to write it? And
The impetus to write it actually goes back to a problem that I saw in people not understanding human dynamics and wicked problems in general, and the problems that it was causing on so many levels. Not the least of which was, of course, academic. I'm pulling up a slide right now, so I apologize for stumbling there. There we go. I've worked with Smithsonian, of course. When I first went to Washington, D.C., I was working with Smithsonian, and I was an executive coach with some of the directors there in the library system. And they were running into this problem. And as you could imagine, Smithsonian's been around for a long time, and it's very hierarchical and highly structured. And there's not a lot of adaptability going on. And I saw a lot of the problems that was causing them. Then when I moved over to the National Defense University, I was already working with the International Council of Systems Engineering. I'd already been presenting on wicked problems, and my background in counseling psychology, of course, and human systems feeds a lot of this. I saw parallels that were happening in organizations from when I used to deal with group dynamics in a therapeutic setting. So when I was seeing the military was having similar issues, and I was publishing, as I said before, in the International Council of Systems Engineering, I had a chance to meet General Shields one time, and this was at the time when we were still involved in Iraq and moving towards Afghanistan. And General Shields had on his wall in his office this giant chart about wicked problems, and it was costing lives. And these same things are costing our students in education as well, these group dynamics. The world's so hyper-connected now. I wanted people to be able to understand better human dynamics, to pause, to stop, not only in their corporate life or their academic life or their careers, but on their daily lives, and to realize that there's an awful lot to be gained by listening to other perspectives and to not feel threatened by it. We live in a giant complex system that literally is infinite. Our view of reality is a tiny little sliver of that big system. We're never outside of it, so we can never see it from a distance. We can only see it from inside. And thus we have to feel less scared, as I talked before, about uncertainty. And we have to understand that everybody has a different take on things. Even somebody who's sitting side by side, seeing the same event occurring in front of them, will have a different take on it. And it all, based on all the other stuff I said about our neurochemistry, our environments, our groups we belong to, our religious beliefs, our cultural values, our family values, how all those things impact our views of reality. So the book hopefully will move people towards a greater understanding of human dynamics, themselves, others, and how it impacts solving problems in the 21st century.
I see Grid Jumper put in a
That's
question, and actually, I have kind of a similar line of training. How much are the DoD and government agencies using for virtual worlds training?
a lot. And there's a lot we don't see because, of course, it's behind firewalls. A lot of it's going on. IBM has pulled an awful lot of theirs behind firewalls now, too. So, and you don't hear about it as much. The general public thinks it's all dying away, but what I see is that it's on steroids and exploding. I'm currently working, as I said before, with the U.S. Military Edge Project, and it's working in conjunction with the Department of Defense's virtual framework. The virtual framework project is to create open standards that allow interfaces of all types of virtual platforms. And I don't think the Department of Defense would be spending money in that area if they did not think this is where the future is. And it is saving lives. I know with the IED I can't talk, improvisational explosive devices, they've actually been saving lives because they've been doing virtual training in immersive environments on how to recognize the complex systems involved in the networking, building, planting of these devices. So yes, it's happening quite a bit. It's, like I said before, it's behind a lot of firewalls, so you may not be as aware of what's going on.
I think a lot of us in the audience, myself included, are educators, and we've been, you know, in the virtual environment game for a while, and we've been promoting it, and even just the gamification of education, and we've run across a lot of challenges, and I think we felt, and again, maybe I'm speaking more for myself, but the challenges of bringing this to schools, and I think maybe the resistance from educators in a larger sense that this is learning, and this is valuable learning. You've made a fantastic case here. how do you get that kind of, what can we do as educators to bring to obviously life? It seems like there's a big investment and a lot of support going into it from military sides. How can we bring that to education? Any advice to us to bring this to a
I
larger
think it's
group?
Well, I think a lot of this movement is already occurring, and we know one of the greatest ways to affect change is through grassroots. The more people find out about it, the more people you introduce, the more you end up with transitions occurring. You'll get a larger group of people suddenly, and borrowing a term from physics, you'll end up with a phase transition, and all of a sudden you're influencing larger and larger groups in your local environment. It is I think the work that y'all are doing is phenomenal. SIGVE in particular is very good about getting the word out on a national level as well as regional and local. And you just keep bringing your friends in and showing them how it works. There's an awful lot of research now available. I've been writing a lot of white papers and proposals dealing with it, and I've been stunned that just in the last 2 years, it has jumped from a trickle of published papers and books on the topic to literally hundreds. So I would start looking at those. I would start doing your presentations to your supervisor in your districts and start pointing out the effectiveness. Now, of course, one of the biggest problems always is how do you quantify this? How do you prove that it's worth the cost? And that's a problem for the military as well because you're dealing with a subjective area. It's very much like my background in counseling psychology and my background in fine art. Evaluating both of those are tricky. They tend to be more qualitative analysis as opposed to quantification. You can't really put numbers on how a person transforms or gains insight and changes their life. And in art, it's the same thing. You can learn the basic skills, but one masterpiece to one person may be a piece of junk to another. So how do you quantify an evaluation of that as well? Virtual worlds are similar. You're dealing with abstract problems. You're dealing with people learning. And so one of the ways they're moving towards trying to quantify is, okay, we're going to pose problems, problem-based learning. And it doesn't matter how you solve the problem. The solution is just, do you solve it at all? And if you solve it, then you pass. So again, dive into all the research. Put yourself on the Google Scholar alert for keywords dealing with virtual worlds or massive multi-user virtual environments or massive player online environments, any keyword that you like, and start receiving those documents. Jesse Schell is a great innovator as well, a talker about this, and he's, I think, with Cornell University. He publishes a lot of his presentations as well. I tend to take some of my talks and I'll turn them into machinimas. And if you would like to be able to refer to those from my website, you're more than welcome to as well. But there's a lot of movement that's happening much faster than I think the general public is aware of. And watching the movement forward with the virtual framework and with Edge in particular right now and Moses is astounding. It's an exciting process to see. So I think all of you that are hanging in there and doing such a good job and plugging away, just keep doing it. Keep reading, keep talking to people, keep sharing, keep pointing out a lot of the innovations that are occurring. There's a lot of work going on with Unity right now for platforms for learning. I know that there's a group in Canada that's doing it for their educational system as well, for instance. And the military, the Edge project, is using the Unreal Engine right now and looking to move into Unity. So there's a lot out there that's going on.
Okay, so kind of following along that path, I'm really amazed, and I think most of us here are. I think all of us consider ourselves kind of gone over the mountain and seen the other side and seen the fruits and berries that are there. But you seem even further along than us. So tell us what your vision of the future is,
Oh,
especially for virtual environments.
mine is. I've been working towards this for the last 5 years, and The Edge project is, I'm very grateful for being included in this project because it's going to allow that vision to become real, to happen. They're enabling it to happen. But what I'm involved with is a company called Innovative Decisions Incorporated, run by Dr. Dennis Beatty. They have and I don't want to call it an AI because so many people have pre-assumptions of what AI means, or even intelligent agents. So I'm just going to call it an adaptive human behavior network. What it is, well, let me backtrack. What we see currently in scripted learning environments, we have bots that programmers say if player does A, bot does B. If player does C, bot does D, and so on. You get a branching tree design. It's all scripted. And it only goes as far as the individual, the programmer, can think and plan and program. And eventually, if you do so much programming, you get a very, very heavy database that can end up collapsing under its own weight in some cases. But it's not able to handle as well the creative thinker who comes out of left field. Think in terms of Rommel, Churchill, Napoleon, Caesar. They weren't playing by the book. They were writing the book. So how do we create simulations that facilitate that type of thinking? How do we encourage it? And IDI, the Innovative Decision Incorporated, and Dr. Beatty have an algorithm they've been using for a number of years with the intelligence community to facilitate just that. It's Bayesian based, but I like to say it's Bayesian on steroids. It enables uncertainty to be brought into the environment. It is not scripted. It's unscripted. It's based on general rules of behavior, and you don't have to load up heavy databases into it. It's able to operate off of chunks, basically, and it's self-learning in many ways. This has a great impact for education as we know it. So imagine as an instructor, you've sent your students to go to their resources to learn the basic skills. They've read their homework. Okay, they actually read their homework. That's a shocker. They come to class and they've read their homework because you're not lecturing from the book anymore. You're not having to regurgitate what they were supposed to have read. They instead, you as the instructor, you point out what the key points were that they're supposed to have read and gotten the skills about. You've designed a simulation that they're going to step into. And it's going to test those skills. But the only thing that's really for certain is that you've posed a problem. So the students in the class, as individual avatars and as groups, step into the environment, and their task is to use the skills they've been learning in class and solve the problem. But they got to figure it out. They got to figure out how to solve the problem. Very much like my fine art graduate degree was. We weren't told how to solve the problems posed. We were just told solve them. You, as an instructor, now become a facilitator, the bug in the ear, like I was as a counselor and when I was doing therapy. You watch them, the environment, this algorithm is able to give you feedback as well as to what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. You can give them hints. The environment will change as well. If it's too tough, and this gets back when we talked about flow, it will become a little less challenging so they don't get too frustrated. If they're bored, it will crank it up and become a little more difficult in order to keep them engaged. You as an instructor will be watching their progress as well, posing the idea, well, John, that just didn't quite work as we had hoped. What if you looked at it from this angle? What do you think you could do if that happened? In the end, students become model builders of problems. They're able to analyze from these experiences any context they face. They'll be able to have those aha moments, those intuitive moments of, gee, this sort of seems like something I would have seen previously, or it's got elements I've experienced before. Every time a student steps into one of these simulations, it'll be different. The bots can't be gamed. They're going to be different every time you step in, and you're able to type and live chat to them and talk to them. And they'll be able to respond back appropriate to what their personalities are supposed to be. So it's an exciting time for education because we're moving into an era where literally every student is going to be able to learn to their maximum potential. They they won't be following just what the author of a book said was the answer. They won't necessarily be limited to what their individual teachers or even classmates were able to pull together ideas. They'll literally have the whole world open up to them. And I think it's just a thrilling time to be.
Couldn't have said it better. Someone put into chat, do you think that virtual environments are going to become more browser based?
Yes, Unity, of course, is already able to be embedded into web pages. So I think there's so many different avenues it can take from becoming a portal to many platforms and many tools. And remember, virtual environments are not a silver bullet for learning. They're just, again, a tool to put in the toolbox, but it's a very powerful tool to have in there.
Great. Let me ask you, okay, if I ask you some speed questions here?
I'll do my best to keep up.
All right. These are a little more fun, but just quick, simple, one word, quick sentence answers. They're just kind of fun. Uh, Facebook or Google Plus?
Google Plus,
Nice. I like that. I'm becoming a big fan of Google Plus. Mac or PC?
PC,
iOS or Android?
Android.
Favorite app?
Oh. APOD.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
APOD is an astronomy app. It brings me a new vision of interstellar space on my phone every morning when I wake up. It's
Wow,
APOD.
very cool. First computer.
Ooh, that's going back to the, oh, whoa. Now there's my first PC that I owned was in the early, mid 80s, I guess, mid 80s, and that was a Dell. But if you go back to high school back in the dark ages, my high school had a modem tapped into Vanderbilt University Library's computer, and there our feedback was printed off on pink paper ribbons. So that goes a long ways.
I'm with you. First mobile or first storage device. Floppy disk, cassette, flash drive.
Oh, it was, well, before computer it was cassettes. Of course, with computer it was floppy disk.
Okay. All right. Angry Birds, Words with Friends, or Medal of Honor.
Hmm. All have different attributes. I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay. Good. All right. Thanks so much, Bev. This was really an amazing journey. Your work is really stellar. So I think a lot of people are going to be checking out all the information. I hope you'll feel free to let people touch base with you. And
Thank you. I appreciate it. And
well,
I'd love to chat whoever would like to.
yeah, well, please come on back and make yourself known at SIGVE. We'd love to hear more. And before everybody heads out for the night, I do want to mention some really great things. Of course, the EduBlog Awards came out, and the SIGVE website that has really been put together with a lot of great work from Scott and GridJumper in particular, especially the SIGVE Weebly, was voted best social network, best educational, or one top five best social network. Sorry about that, top five. So that's pretty darn good. And GridJumper was best individual blog. Really awesome. And our good friend Catherine Horton Flippin, also won best teacher blog for Control Alt Teach. So we have some award winners as part of our group, and I want to thank, of course, our producer, which is Grid Jumper, who does all the great setup work and has really just been a force for our group of good and communication. And also, I want to thank good friend and Poobah, Scott Merrick. So, and thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks again, Bev, and have a great
Thank you.
night.
I enjoyed it.
Great holidays, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.